Uh, Mike's on. Gotcha. All right. This is Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. Welcome to the Indian Wells Valley Water District Finance Committee, and I'll call the meeting to order at 3 o'clock. So with that, do we have any public comments or anybody out there in the hall lining to come in and say anything or anything from the committee? All righty. Hearing none, we'll go on to fraud risk. Anything?
No, nothing to report.
That's very, very good. We always like to hear that. I'd ask for comments from the public, but I don't see any. All right, number 4, groundwater imported water costs, Groundwater Authority. And I don't know how much more we want to keep discussing this, and I guess we leave it on here just to keep it in people's.
I actually have a report.
Oh, you
I
do?
have something worth reporting on.
Oh, on that one. Well, good.
So I apologize for being late. I was talking to Krieger and Stewart.
Yeah.
Provost and Pritchard just sent us their 60% design review.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the information that we used in our cost study came out of their preliminary design review, which was essentially their 30% design.
Right.
And so I've asked Krieger and Stewart to not only look at that, but look to see if there's anything significantly changed in the 60% design that would affect the cost, such
Right.
as updated costs for electricity or updated, issues that they've, that they've notified. So they're going to look at it from a pretty comprehensive a standpoint, but it'll be interesting to see what they, if they find anything in there, because in the last round, the cost stuff that we pulled out was buried pretty deep.
Right.
We had to look pretty closely. So that is worth reporting, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. And if we find something that's different, we probably should make it public that, hey, we took the new information provided by the GA's design group and we put it into no matter if it changes up or down,
Yeah.
whatever maybe we want to announce what's going on with that. About that cost, when I get asked about that, I got a call from Norm Stevenson from Washington, who's meeting with Vince Fong with the Realtors Association, but he's going to meet with him on the side about the water. Of course, he asked me one question. He goes, what kind of analysis, what kind of cost estimate has been done for bringing water from the north? And I said, there hasn't been one. The DA has not even considered looking at it. And then he went on to our cost analysis, and I was trying to put it in simple words for him because he's not familiar with it at all. He just started looking at it and the whole bit. And I didn't know how to make it over the phone without something in front of me, very simple for him if he takes anything to Vince Fong. So I may have, I don't know if what I basically said is the final analysis that we used different amounts of funding they may receive. But when we looked at the final cost for people, we assumed they were going to receive the whole $150 million. Okay? I think that was the correct thing. We're assuming they're going to get all the funding they asked for. And so the bottom line you see, and he says, well, did the cost estimate break out capital costs versus operation and maintenance? And it did.
Yes.
And he had a number there, and he said that, I forget what he read me in the cost, in the report he was looking at, that particular report. He implied that the O&M, I thought he told me 32 million over so many years. It wasn't like that, was it? I don't remember it being presented like that for operations. And basically operations.
It was basically presented on a cost per year basis. So we assumed, I believe, at
that's what I thought.
1,500 acre feet a
Yeah.
year, it was something like 7 million a year, and then it was up to 10 million a year. If you're at 3,000, about 12 million a year.
All
So
right.
if you assume what we did, the number that comes out of there that's really sort of
Right.
staggering is if it turns out to be 10 million a year and the pipeline lasts 50 years, that's $500 million over that 50-year
Yeah.
period.
If I'm talking with somebody who hadn't even looked at the cost analysis before,
Yeah.
and it's the type of thing that you need to maybe talk with someone who's been through it or spend a lot more time on it than a few hours
Yeah.
than on the whole thing. And I guess my question is, George, didn't you put out something sign of a table or a chart or something that says,
Yeah, I've got some
if-
summary stuff I could
some
send.
summary stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't hurt to send it on to Norm through the,
I'll send you what I've
through
got.
Donna and such, yeah. The summary, I think the summary would give him more important information. And that's what he was looking for. Because when you're asked, if you've never looked at it, if someone came to me and say, what have you found? How do you put that clearly to them? So I broke it down to, I says, let's put it this way, Norm. If this pipeline was to get built as planned and they get the whole $150 million, then it looks like water bills are going to double. And then you're probably going to have a property tax increase of a substantial amount as well. And was that a true statement?
Yeah, I think we calculated something like $600 in property tax.
That's what I said, I think I told him 3 to 7 or
Yeah,
something, yeah.
Somewhere around $600 in property tax increase plus a doubling of your water bill is a pretty realistic estimate at 3,000 acre feet. of
Yeah,
water.
and that's what I told him. But just so you know, I think if you have that summation chart that keeps it simple, wouldn't be hard, bad to have that handy, because I'll just send people to you and you can hand them one at the desk. They're asking. All right, that's all I have on that one. Do you have anything on groundwater import costs from the Groundwater Authority, Stan? Nothing except, yeah, all right. Okay, let's move on to recycled water project preliminary engineering analysis. I thought you had something on that. George, did you want to?
Yeah, we sort of discussed this yesterday, and I was just discussing the comments from yesterday's meeting with Krieger and Stewart that we were going to hold off for the time being as we waited more clarity from the city, and that we were going to continue to pursue. And Krieger and Stewart actually had some really good feedback. You know, they were discussing how, if we don't go through with that, how we don't have anything to compare to the pipeline costs, how while we understand that there may be other entities interested in that water, we need to look at like how the adjudication could turn out. So let's presume that, you know, we go through the adjudication and we don't get every bit of water we need. Let's say we need 6,000 and we only get 5,000 out of the adjudication after it's all done. Who knows? Whatever those numbers turn out to be. We need to be careful that we don't limit our access to additional sources of water that we might need to develop to really meet our needs. You know, and that could be getting water from somebody else, but it also could mean, you know, that there comes a point farther out in the future, post adjudication, where we might really need to be able to have access to that water, and we want to make sure that we're prepared for that. So that's a kind of a really long-term thing, because we're still a few years away from that date, but it is worth projecting out into the future. Like, you know, ultimately the adjudication is going to assign water rights to everybody, including us. We'd like to hope we get everything we need. That's not a guarantee, and so we need to make sure we have all our bases covered.
To fill Stan in is basically what I said yesterday about this is based on the way the city responded to us when we asked them to go ahead and consider working with George to do an agreement that if we continue to spend money to detail engineer this, that we know we have the water. And we were sort of shut down at that point. No, you're not going to do it. And so what my recommendation was yesterday, I'm going to make it to the board as well, is that until their contract term is up with the GA, which is November 19th this year, that we don't even bother approaching them again on this, because they don't want to talk about it. You see what I'm saying? So why continue spending money on something we don't know that we have? And even if they were to come to some agreement, we're still a few years down the road before we would have to be, you know, installing anything. So we have time. So based on all the other budgetary things that are going on, my recommendation would be that we hold off on anything right now until the city can commit to something. And I don't know when that will be, because if they're not going to commit to something, we're barking up a tree we're going to be spending money on we're never going to do. One last thing is when I talked with Cheryl's Valley Minerals, they're still maybe interested in the wastewater. And they know what's going on between us and the city. You know, the city's not committing, so we're not going to spend a lot of money on engineering, but they want to do some engineering as well and continue at their cost. And they'd share that with us, George. And they said, well, we still have to go to city for some information about the wastewater. And correct me if I'm wrong, I said, I think Krieger and Stewart might have the information you need, which is output and fault, whatever it may be. I think Krieger Stewart was privy to some information about the end product.
Mhm.
And so what I encourage Sherrills Valley to do, and if you haven't talked to them already, is to talk with you. And I don't have a problem with them corresponding with Krieger and Stewart if they're spending their engineering dime. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, on their end, because they want to be, they're like you, George, they want to be prepared that when, if the time comes and the city says, yeah, we want to utilize this water, we have a plan to come forward with. So I think that by using them to work with us at their engineering costs, we could come up with something. But share information is, and that's going to be up to the, I don't know, I think it'll be up to the board if they want to agree that Krieger and Stewart shares it, but I don't think Sherrills Valley is going to get what they want from the city. You know what I'm saying? But that's my recommendation is why dump a whole lot of money into this right now?
And let's be realistic, like,
Yeah.
we have time, because likely, the likely commitment for that type of water probably won't come until after, at least phase 2 of the adjudication. I mean, it's gonna go through, you're gonna have to know what your water right is, and do you need more water or do you not? And then you're gonna,
Yeah.
Well, I've got a couple thoughts. At the Economic Development Conference,
Yeah.
was it last week? The city indicated that their wastewater treatment plant was at 100% design level, which means they had to have already analyzed
Right.
both the input and the output of their sewer lines. So I wouldn't expect that we should have to do anything to obtain the information we need regarding, or Cyril's, either one. That information ought to be right available, either that or they don't have 100% design.
no, and the city has been very willing to share that information, all the studies they've done. I have asked
Okay.
Krieger and Stewart to run one additional analysis that I don't know the city did. There's a list of chemicals that the EPA calls, I think, the COC, chemicals of concern. These are potential things that they might regulate in the future that they don't regulate today. I've asked Krieger and Stewart to at least run through that analysis to make sure that there's essentially nothing out there that would be sort of a showstopper in terms of, taking that water and potentially reusing it somehow, so, that over time, the EPA is going to regulate those just like they did arsenic and everything else. That's their plan. That's what they have stated they're going to do. They have these chemicals of concern, and one by one, they're going to create standards. And so we need to really understand that piece of it. So we're going to at least look at that. And that's a fairly limited cost type of thing. But I think Ron's got a good sort of notional plan about, we don't need to do this work today, but certainly we need to prepare to do it if and when that time comes. And that may be, later this year when the GA and the city's agreement comes to an end and the city's looking to renegotiate with somebody, but we'll have to just figure out when that happens.
Right.
Well, I guess my thought is that what the city told us is that their hands are tied, they can't do anything, and it's up to the GA. My feeling is we should, at minimum, attempt to get an agenda item on the GA to let them either vote it up or down. They keep pretending that they're willing to let us do it. And if it's true, then they ought to be willing to go through and officially recommend that or state that.
I thought they had, and it's been brought up 2 times.
Yeah.
And the first one was a consensus. I thought the other one is they basically voted to not do the wastewater project.
Yes.
And they literally offered it to us. That's why we went down this path, because
Exactly.
Yeah.
they basically said,
So-
here, does the water
so-
district, and now
well-
that came with that study they had and some funding, and then they went, well, you probably won't be
Yeah,
done in
right
time
on.
to.
Exactly. We're in total agreement. That's why, in my mind, the city is just trying to put us off. It's not a serious thing. And what we ought to do is see if the GEA is willing to follow through and eliminate what I consider as an artificial roadblock. and get it moving. We are a member of the GEA. We ought to be able to get a agenda item on the GEA. And if we can't, as far as I'm concerned, we need to make that publicly known.
What the GA is saying right now, and was reiterated by Scott Heyman at the council meeting, is that if you guys want to do a project, you need to present that project to the GA for approval. And that's where they stand right now. So until that contract is ending with the city, we're going nowhere.
And that's why.
Yeah.
That's why it has to be.
Yeah.
What we need to do is, now that we've gotten formal direction from the city through their legal staff, what we need to do is take it back to the GA and say, we would like you, now that you've unofficially said you're no longer interested in the city's wastewater, we would like you to formally close out the contract that you have with them so that we can now get serious with the city, and the city doesn't have, able to give us that response.
Yeah, I wouldn't touch it until November, because even in Keith Lemieux's report, he basically said, this is a report to the city council. Decision to suspend the project. In August and October of 2023, the GA staff presented updates detailing project cost estimates. At that, I'm paraphrasing now, the board unanimously decided in October to suspend work on this project. They've already agreed they don't want to work on this project.
But that's not what's keeping the city from cooperating.
It's that
with us.
contract.
It's the contract.
Yeah,
Only the contract.
right. And it ends in November.
And it may be over in November, but in the meantime, there's no reason not to ask the GA to squash it and eliminate it to allow us to do our work.
So who's going to pay the city's legal bills if that, because isn't that agreement the agreement by which the GA pays the city's legal bills? Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes, well,
So I'm kind of curious, what is the city going to do about paying their legal bills associated with the,
Yeah, and the city, and I would think that the GA would want to eliminate paying the city's legal bills. I mean,
Not if it's not costing them anything. They just pay it right out of the money we pay them.
well.
so I don't know how that works.
So
Okay,
the
well,
point
anyway,
is
That's my position. I think we ought to, now that the city has said, no, you go back to the GA, my feel is we should go back to the
No.
GA.
I don't think so. I think we've been to the GA twice. I think we ought to say, we're done with this until November 19th. And at that particular point, in the meantime, that doesn't mean George can't discuss with Ron Strand.
Yeah.
Who knows, something may pop out of somewhere and say,
Yeah,
oh,
well,
by the way, we're ready to move.
I'm not sure that we've got
Yeah.
money before next November anyway, but nonetheless.
That's why this is in the finance
Every
committee.
time we give the city or the county a reason to do something and claim we're not trying to do our job, they make it very public. And in my mind, we should do just the same thing. And the reverse, they've said they don't want to do it. We've offered to do it. And now they're saying, no, they're raising artificial blocks.
I don't see a reason why Chuck, or in June or something, when David's on that board, that they can't just say, hey, we want another decision on this. And it's going to go back to the same thing they've always said. We have a contract that expires on November 19th. Until November 19th of this year, we're wasting our time. The public knows exactly what we want to do. They know, I couldn't have used the word with the city council a number of times about,
I appreciate
yeah.
where you're coming from. I'm just coming from a different direction.
Yeah, I understand. We're not dropping it by long shot. It's just, but however, if Sales Valley Minerals wants to spend money on engineering and they want to collaborate with Krieger and Stewart, let's put some of the money, let
So
them pay for
this
some of
sounds
the
like a topic for discussion at the larger
Yeah,
board meeting.
yeah.
So I just want to make sure this will be on the agenda for,
Yeah, well, you could just put it, I'll be here tomorrow, we can add it.
yeah, I'll let Lauren know. I'm putting a note there that I want to make sure that so that the full board can have a good discussion on this,
Because we can give our report about what happened and what's been going on, and,
Yeah.
I think we should.
Yeah.
Let's do
And
that.
that would make it more publicly
That
out there.
that was the intention.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. I think we beat that one to death, didn't we? I'm trying to save us money for a while, Ty. Just keep that in mind. Hold off.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. I know we have a lot going on. All right. let's go on to, I guess we're already down to number 6, financial statements, unless the public has any comment. Yeah, we just can't get an audience. No, we're trying.
You're boring.
I'm boring, I guess.
Problem.
I'll have to tell you, I went to the Owens Valley GA meeting. Wow, for a small meeting, they had 8 or 10 people call in and 10 or 12 people in the room. It was,
Wow.
They have nothing else to
They get
do in Inyo.
they get a really, I mean, boy, you talk about water up there and people are showing up. Pretty interesting.
All right,
Well,
let's,
They've had problems for 100 years.
Well, what's wild is, this is just a side note. In the Owens Valley, the LADWP property is considered adjudicated, despite the fact they don't have a pumping allocation or a physical solution or anything else. And the Owens Valley GA has no jurisdiction over that area. The Owens Valley GA actually has jurisdiction over everything that's not owned by LADWP, which was a really interesting insight into what's going on up there. And I can tell you, they're not happy about that. Like, they were not happy that somehow this new regulatory program of Sigma did not, in fact, allow them to regulate LADWP in any way. They were, and it's not a new thing. It's just, I guess that's the way it's been for a while, but it's
Yeah, well, I thought
Definitely.
LADWP was getting surface water, not groundwater.
well, if you consider their property adjudicated, that is groundwater specific. So take that for what it is.
all right, I think we need to move on.
Okay.
Okay.
Those are just side notes.
So let's see, we're on to the financial statements. And yes, financial statements.
All right, so we're a third of the way, or 2/3 of the way through the year. So for the end of February, fiscal year, only 2 months into the calendar year.
Yeah,
Actual revenues to date, 11,409,000, which is 1.3 million better than budget.
Hmm.
Though, 500,000 of that's from GA fees.
right.
The expenditures are at 12.1 million, which is only 280,000 above budget, and 1 million above budget for the GA fees. So the rest of the budget's doing well. It's just those GA fees.
Even with all that money Jason's spending out there and Renee?
They're spending capital.
Okay. All
Um,
right.
But we have a net of a negative just under 700,000, which is 1 million better than budget. So we're creeping up a little. We have, consumption of water has gone up.
It's going to be again.
It was about 8% up
Wow.
in February compared to the previous February. So
And we expect people are going to start turning their irrigation back on or whatever. so-
probably.
Yeah, we've had a pretty incredibly dry year after a couple
Yeah.
of super wet years. So it's having an impact, I believe.
Okay.
You see capital expenditures of just under 7 million. Now, I did break out the line beneath it, the 6 million, that is made up of the $3 million Shannon Groves got us,
Okay.
555,000 from assessment district
Okay.
revenue to buy those meters, and the balance being paid from the bond proceeds. So
So explain that to me again. So you come up with 6 million plus there.
6 million, that's not paid from our, if you want, our revenues.
Okay.
So the other 960,000 is
Right.
coming from the revenues.
Okay.
Of that, over 500,000 is the groundwater model,
Okay. I see what you're saying.
which
So,
is 200,000 over the budget we put in for it. And I have another 50,000 to pay out in next week's check run. So,
that's all for the adjudication, including, that's all the engineering and the studies
yeah,
and the
and
legal.
it's important, but it's more to just reiterate that the communication breakdown we have last year, we're trying to fix for this next budget year. I guess that's the next item. so we
Yeah,
won't
yeah,
do
we'll be-
that yet, but
It is. And that's
So what you're saying is the difference of 970,000 roughly is basically capital that's coming out of our revenues.
yes,
Okay.
yep.
All right. I like that. Now,
And then we have the 820,000 debt service principal. That's also coming out of revenues.
right.
Um, And then you see to date, we're just under 17 million paid to the groundwater authority
Oh, this is from the very beginning, right?
from the very beginning.
Do we, I really want to look at this resolution, whatever they wrote, or an engineering study is what I was looking at. My understanding is that 5 years or $25 million.
Yeah.
But, and we're going to be pretty close to that pretty quick. And I just don't want to, and you know, we need, legally speaking, where do we stand when we hit that point? Because we're not far off from that.
And we're just over halfway. On the
Yeah.
replenishment side.
For the replenishment side, yeah. It won't be long before we're there. And because that was the same thing what my understanding was with the pumping fee. That once we got the extra 1 million something we needed to pay everybody off, and that pumping fee would now be gone. And it still sits there. You know, not that they wouldn't write another resolution adding a new pumping fee of some kind to run the organization. But I just don't want the same thing to happen with this because that worries me.
Yeah.
I understood from the engineering report and from everything that went into this is that their goal was to, well, that's what scares me. Our goal is to raise 50-some million dollars. Well, if no one else is paying it and we are, they can say, well, by the way, we haven't raised our 50 million. You need to continue paying. We need to be prepared for that.
And I'll have to say, like, I've had some discussions with Ron Strand at the city and, you know, he talks about, you know, a realistic timeline for the completion of their proposed pipeline project. And he says, oh, you know, that's 6 or 7 years away and you'll be done. You know, he's said this. You'll be done paying your replenishment fee and that water will all be paid for and you won't have to worry about that. So that really shouldn't be factored into the cost. And I go, okay, but which circles you back to the question, that's probably a great statement for us if that $13 million is in the bank and they can use it and they
Yeah.
don't have to collect it from us again somehow. That's fantastic. And that's a great statement. It comes back to this, have they really put that money in the bank? Kind of question, which is, you know, because like, it's easy to say,
They
oh,
have money to pay for it if they can actually find it.
Yeah.
So
Right, so
I'm not sure what.
I see what you're saying, George, that if that thing ever came to fruition, they we already say, well, we've already paid for our portion of the water right.
right. And so
Yeah.
he has sort of insinuated that that's his position, that if we've paid our 25 million and that's what they use to buy the water, I just don't know how they're going to actually pay for it because it doesn't appear that they're saving that money to actually buy the water that.
I don't like,
So I don't know.
I don't like to disparage people at all, but he's the same one that told the city council that if we don't get Keith paid for by the GA, then the public is paying 3 times for the same lawyer. Whatever that, I could never understand that logic. You know, he's the one that convinced the city council this is a good contract to take because by getting their legal fees off of themselves, the city, that makes sure that the citizens aren't paying for a lawyer 3 times or 3 different lawyers. I couldn't, but that's the logic he used. So
If you looked at their budget,
I don't want to.
it ought to, you know,
Yeah.
it ought to be clear where their money is coming from. But I've got 3 questions or
Okay.
comments, or actually, a new one just came
Well,
up.
you keep ripping that, he keeps ripping that off of there, Jason. Can you glue that on?
Did I hear either you or you say that we were paying $900,000 out of our rate revenue on capital?
To date, sort of, we have paid 900,000 from rate revenue towards capital. There are some, about 100,000 that'll be reimbursed for the consolidations.
Okay, all right.
Well, but I thought maybe you had said you could calculate that by doing something, and you said it so fast. Didn't follow.
It's the new line item he's got here of the 6,028,000. If you subtract that from the 6,993,000, if you subtract those 2 numbers, what's left is 9 something. That's,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's pretty straightforward, isn't
Yeah,
it?
that's what, yeah,
But there's 100,000 of that will get transferred
back in.
back.
We'll
once we
receive money back, yeah.
Properly deduct it from, okay,
But at this
Receive our
time, it's
payments.
still coming out of revenue until it
It's
gets
still outstanding.
come
yeah.
back, yeah.
Yeah.
okay, Good.
All right.
Okay, now my other comments were, I also noticed that the GSA is obviously out of balance. And my concern there is, well, of course, hopefully people won't use as much water in the future and we'll get that back in balance. But my belief, I don't know, hopefully not, is that the reason that happens is that people are using more water and it's happening that more water is coming from users who are using less than 20 units per month, so they're not paying the extra replenishment fee.
Yeah, we've got a timing issue. Because we produce water during the month, and that's what we pay the fee on. And then it's consumption that occurs, we don't do it month to month, it spreads over months, so it becomes a timing issue of receiving that money for the water that's consumed.
So we pay the GA
Oh.
based on what our readings are for the month, basically
Right.
our readings for the entire district.
Okay, so
Yeah.
there's a
Right.
chance that they'll catch up at the end of the year.
They'll catch up.
Some of-
It's never 100%. We always collect a little less than we pay, and that's to account for a loss of water loss and other things that should be spread, that should
Yeah,
charge every customer for that.
right.
So we're just a little bit behind. We always come out a little bit behind.
Okay, well, that makes me feel a little better.
Yeah.
Let me see, the transmission and distribution is down 245K. That's quite a bit of money. Is there just a short answer, Jason, to why we're 200 and that's like 10%?
Well, some of it is the staff has been utilized on capital projects recently. So a lot of that, their time,
Oh, okay, people being transferred off of the O&M to the capital.
capital.
Okay, well, that makes good sense.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then my last thing is the non-operating interest. I always thought that was the debt service. And
Part of it.
I'm,
It's the interest side of debt service.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's the interest side of debt service.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's a big number, the 362. And
It's
maybe
because,
just for cosmetics, my feeling is that whether we've written a check to pay that debt service or not, we've accrued that interest and it certainly will catch up at the end.
it will catch up at the end. The budget is a straight line, which it really shouldn't be because our 2024 bond payments is an interest payment in October and an interest and principal payment in April. The rest of them are month to month we pay, but the 2024 bond,
Oh, so what you're doing is you're taking the bond and dividing it over 12 months,
right?
even
and
though
it-
it's
and it
paid
should
in,
be,
and
yeah.
the same thing with interest. Okay.
So that,
So we
that
get a better
formula needs
picture.
an update.
Okay.
But I guess my feeling is rather than going through that explanation every month to make me understand why that thing is so far off, wouldn't it just be simpler, just to straight line it? Because, I mean, otherwise it looks, I mean, that's a big number and it has a big impact on the bottom line. Whereas in effect, we know at the end of the year, it's gonna wash very, very close.
Yeah, I can straight,
I guess what are you asking, Stan, that he just go ahead and actually put it in the month when it's paid? Is that what you're?
No, I mean, it's, from, accounting, we're supposed to be using accrual, and even though
Right.
our checks, I mean, I understand what he's saying. is
Yeah.
when we write the checks, they're not linear and
Right.
they're not straight line.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, when this takes our budget numbers and it's off by 362, think, hey, we're doing really great. Well, no, we're not.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really not it's an artificial number, even though it may be exactly what he's done. It misinterprets where we really are relative to the budget. Does that make any sense?
No. Well, I know it does, but the only other way to do it, in my opinion, is you just put in a month when it's paid. I see what he's trying to do. He's saying, you know, we know based on the contracts where we have for these bond issues and the interest, we know pretty well what our non-operating interest is going to be throughout the year. So he tries to,
I can play with the formula for the budget.
yeah, don't do anything that you got to spend a whole lot of doing handwork on this kind of stuff. I mean, if it isn't something that's in the system that you can just pull right out or change.
Yeah,
You know.
I'll play with the formula.
Okay,
Yeah.
well,
I see Stan's point though, because
Yeah.
it,
I don't want it to make it look artificially good and us think that we're really doing good here when, no, we're right on and
So as I
that's
understand,
one
Ty-
expense that isn't going to change and won't really impact us.
somewhere down the road here in the next 4 months, there's going to be a large interest payment, which is going to take that negative 362 and either bring it more to even out.
Yeah.
Because it's going to
Mhm.
hit sometime
Yeah,
later.
no, and
Yeah.
I understand that.
Right.
It's just that in
Yeah.
the meantime, what it does is sort of give us a artificially good position when it's really not.
Right.
The debt service interest, it wouldn't even have to be in here from the extent that if we're looking at deltas, and over the year, we know exactly what it's gonna be. So it's neither really ahead or behind ever. So it just looks funny when it shows that we're.
I don't know how you would do that to get it so
362,000.
it's even out. I don't know. Unless you just say my interest for the entire year for this is going to be this, you divide it by 12, boom, boom, boom.
Because that's,
I'll look at it.
Yeah, see, like I said, I don't want to see you going, I don't think you should go through a whole lot of modifications
no,
of anything.
don't do
Yeah.
it. But
Yeah.
in the meantime, just remind me every month. that
Well, you're going to see it.
But it's not really
So,
off.
What month do we catch up? Pretty soon here, I'm assuming.
Yeah, April.
Okay.
Well, I can make you all feel better. Go listen to the Elon Musk, Joe Rogan podcast section where he talks about the unidentified billions and billions of dollars that come out of the US Treasury that we have no way to trace where they go. Like, it's,
Uh,
you know, you can
It's only a
like or not like
It's
the
only a
administration,
few,
what they're
it's
doing.
only a few billion.
No, it's probably a few hundred billion.
Oh, you never worked out a black program, George, in your whole
Yeah.
career?
Yeah.
Even black programs have codes that go with them.
Okay.
Okay. I don't have anything else on this. Stan, do you have some more?
No, I'm good.
Okay, good.
I appreciate
Okay.
all that info.
And I do appreciate that line item you have there so we can distinguish, because I asked you that question, how much is our revenue actually paying for capital project work? And that's my answer. Yeah,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, I was hoping that would clear up some things.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I think it does. But I can do the subtraction in my head. It's pretty easy. Okay. If nothing else on the financial statements, and I know we got all your nice graphs and everything, but, which is
Those are
fine.
Really nice graphs.
Those are nice graphs. We used to have a lot more of them, but you cut them down some because Don liked his graphs. Yes, he did. All right, we can move on to the fiscal year 2026 budget update. So are we
Or
looking
just-
to make some changes here?
So I requested this be put on, and Ty and staff can feel free to chime in. We're going to get an early start. I think Ty pointed out that last year we had some less than perfect communication from some of our consultants about what was going to be charged when, and, you know, we have outstanding contracts that we've agreed to pay, but we really haven't scheduled out like exactly which year we think they're going to be paying. We're going to fix up some of those issues. And I've got our staff working hard. I can tell you some of the guys out back were a little confused by the fact that, you know, I said, here, give us your wish list so we can build this budget that we did for last year. And then we realized as we went through that process that, you know, we weren't going to fund everything. And then that was the data we needed to be able to go through the rate study and to sort of right the ship and make sure that we're on a good glide path. And so now this year, we're really going to focus on, doing our best to predict, what we're going to do during the year, how much it will cost. And so we're getting an early start on that. And, just want to let the board know that there's a lot of emphasis on trying to make sure that we plan what we do and do what we plan. Now, when things like the Brady line happen, then you can't necessarily plan for that, but to the best of our ability, we're really going to get in that mode, and we're going to ask our consultants to say, we know you have a lot of things to do between now and the end of the adjudication, or now then the end of a certain project. We want you to project how much of that is going to happen in 2026, so that we have a better estimate, so we don't have the issues we see, where perhaps the groundwater model itself isn't over the budget they told us it would cost, but the amount we actually put in to plan for in this fiscal year didn't really match what happened when the bills came in, and we want to correct those errors. And none of these are life-threatening to the budget of the district, but there's certainly areas where we're gonna work hard to ensure that we understand exactly where we plan to spend our money in 2026. So Ty?
Yeah, that's really it. I mean, we can only budget with the information we have, and so that was a detriment last year. We think we've got the system and process worked out, so I think we'll be able to start in a good place.
And my biggest concern when it comes to operations and things like that, you guys are the experts. You're going to put your wants in. You're going to discuss what you need to do and not do, including capital work. My biggest concern is when it comes to all this other activity we're doing, which is, I don't care if it's doing a monitoring well somewhere or looking at the, different, we talked about cofferdams or anything to do with the valley as a whole for water and the adjudication. Those numbers scare me.
Yeah.
It's just like when I see this thing that recently came out, George, I thought you sent it to all the board members, the one about the potential cost from Ramble for a recharge map. Was that how it was laid out, studying a recharge map?
Yep, it was taking the AEM data
Right, yeah.
and integrating it all together and figuring out where we can put stuff in. I think
Right.
it was 90,000 to 100,000. Yeah, that's
It was,
that stuff. So I've already talked to Tim and said, well, how much of that do you think you would be able to do? We got to plan into where
Right.
to do that.
but yeah, I thought I remember that number being 200,000. It was a big number. I looked at it.
Oh, no, that was the Krieger and Stewart estimate.
No, there's one from Ramble.
Oh.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, there's one from Ramble, so 200,000. So that's, I see his eyes. Those are the kind of things that you need to know about. And then when it comes to decision, what we should do or not do, that obviously those kind of projects come to the board, at least some for discussion, whether it's closed session, open session, whatever it may be. But those worry me. As far as the operations and the materials you need and the capital projects, you guys stay on top of that. That's what you get paid for. You do a good job of it.
Yeah.
When it comes to these other decisions,
We got to be careful because those other decisions oftentimes impact what we can do in operations.
exactly. So you need that information as soon as you needed the other information. You need it all.
Yeah. So now you know
Yeah.
why we're bringing this
Yeah.
topic up now, because we need to give our consultants plenty of time to map out, and, they're going to have discussions with us, because they're going to have to ask us, what do you want us to do? And, decisions like, are we going to do the recycled water project study for $200,000 this year or not? That makes a difference in what we put in the budget and plan for, and whether we're going to have Tim do this other work. So all those things need to be sort of thought through about what we're going to have them do, because it does, just for exactly the reason you stated. So we're
Yeah.
getting on it early so we can get those things sort of mapped out for the board, really to understand not just what we're doing day to day in the operations, but also what is our plan with the adjudication and with projects to achieve sustainment and all the other things that we have to do.
Right, and I agree with that. And I think that when you bring something to the board, whether it be we want it, for some reason, we need to do this map of recharge areas, and it's $200,000. And here's critically why we need to do it and when we need to do it. Because, that's a lot of money. And all that stuff is, and I know engineers and I know engineering firms. I trust them. I think Krieger and Stewart does a good job. I think Tim does. I think you always look at what else what other product can I sell? I hate to say that, but they do. But what do we really need? And, I looked at that one for that map, George, and I thought, well, is that something essential for the adjudication? I don't know the answer to that one, so I'd expect you to eventually answer that. Do we
Okay.
need it and when? But all those kind of projects, don't you agree? We need to, that's where to me, that's where the big unknown money is. That's what's drained some of our reserves.
Yeah.
And I don't want to, yeah.
No, we need to,
Yeah.
if we don't need it for the adjudication or the timing is such that we don't need it until next fiscal year, a lot of that stuff is going to be charged to our, what is it, the unrestricted or unrestricted budget.
Yeah.
And I agree with you that the capital budget, we're only going to spend the capital
Yeah.
money that we come in. And although, we are going to have a more complex budget, I think, this year, and that we've got how many different projects we got. I mean, each consolidation is going to be basically a different fund or a different account. And so all of those are going to have to be accounted for separately, but they'll work themselves out.
Yeah.
My concern is that we understand what's in the unrestricted budget so that we know what we can and cannot spend. I had a little bit of an awakening when I looked at the audit report, and it looked like, I think it was in terms of spendable dollars in the audit, we now are down to 6,800,000 and change in terms of dollars. And of course, the lower that gets, the more we need to keep track of and monitor the unrestricted dollars that we spend. So
And that brings something else.
getting this done early, I totally agree with.
Yeah. And it-
Planning now, and as a matter of fact, having a first look at the draft budget before June, I think would be beneficial for
Right.
this group, not for the board, just to see where we are.
And something else comes to mind too it goes to what George says about being prepared with these projects or having costs on them and spending the engineering. Keep in mind that as I understand the adjudication, when the physical solution comes out, it's going to contain things which are potential projects to help mitigate any overuse of the basin, or which will be charged based on if you use more than what you are allotted to by the courts, and whatever that amount might be. If you go over it, there's going to be a fee charged. Hopefully, it's not $2,100 an acre foot. But that money in turn was supposed to be used for different types of projects, whether it be changing well locations to spread the pumping out, whether it be, doing a well up in El Paso, whether it be coffers. But so how much money do we need to spend now that when it comes time to do the physical solution, we say, here are because it should have a list of potential projects and potential costs of those projects. So you can justify any kind of charges you're going to do for pumping. So, but how much do we, and again, that's between George, the engineers, and the staff. How much do we want to spend saying, look at wastewater. It may be that we only need to spend a few $100,000 total, that any project costs would be wrapped up in the physical solution if it occurred. When it occurs, I should say. Those type of things. Because as I see that a lot of physical solutions end up charging a certain amount of money for pumping to do those kind of projects.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and it becomes a
But
project of the, yeah,
I totally agree, but
Yeah.
I also think that we're talking 4 or 5 years in the future.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think any of that, I mean, I'd be very happy if we could, 4 or 5 years from now, have all this settled and know who's
Right.
responsible. I mean, we don't even know who's water master is going to be at this point in time.
I'm just saying that when we look at spending money on engineering pre-designs to be prepared,
Oh.
we need to keep that to a minimum to get us the information we need to proceed. I'm not saying stop entirely, but it'd be nice because even when you go into adjudication, you have to know some costs. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that we're going to have more than enough projects and stuff to spend money on, that we're not going to worry about a lot of those things that we're
Yeah,
going to be spending money on in the future.
So hopefully, in the coming months, what you'll see is a a list of the, the stuff that we do in-house and lists of the things that we would like our consultants to do. And you'll be able to comment and see it in a common sense sort of fashion where we know what's going on. So that's the goal, and that's why we're starting early.
I applaud that, by the way. I appreciate that.
Yeah. That does bring to mind a question real quick, that when we budget money for like Krieger and Stewart, we estimate some hours over the year, correct? There's a chunk of money that's there to use Krieger and Stewart. Does that include if we say, okay, we want you to do a quick study on wastewater? No, okay, that's just for the basic engineering?
I just talked to them. They're going to give us a small task order for that specific one. That's
Usually
separate.
for each task, they develop a budget.
Okay,
And then there's like a pot of money for, quote, district engineer. That's
Right.
kind of like you call Chuck up for something quick,
Okay.
or his attendance at the board meetings. Those go into that budget.
so that's what goes in your line item for.
Yeah, that's
for-
usually it's been around 40 grand the last
Okay.
few years.
So any of these little new projects or ideas, those are
All under
separate?
task orders
Okay,
are separate, yeah.
And, well, the way I look at it is there isn't a special capital project that we've been funded for that has to come out of the unrestricted funding. And regardless of where the line item is, it's going to come out of unrestricted funding.
pretty much.
I'm going to look at Ty, because Ty's going to make sure that we don't violate any regulations about where the money comes from.
Yeah,
Right, yeah. If I can apply it to capital, I do.
right.
If it's, otherwise it's operations, but they
Okay.
both come out of the same place. As
But-
far
but,
as,
Yeah, and,
The
and
bank.
I, yeah. and
Yeah,
I
did-
didn't- I didn't mean to imply we should,
Right.
if they're supporting a capital project, we're sure
Yeah.
going to take that money out of that capital project.
There's rules and
rather than
regulations that
put it-
guideline
We
is,
don't
yeah.
overspend that account,
Yeah.
but, yeah, if we can't find a capital project to
Okay,
actually charge the restricted funds, to restricted funds, it's going to be unrestricted.
so George, as you develop this on this number, line item 7, is it going to come through this committee before, or how you want to handle that?
That's exactly how it's
You can
going.
bring it here? Okay. So we don't, hopefully we won't see it all at one time, we can see
Yeah, we'll-
bits and pieces of it come out, yeah,
We'll try to
yeah.
feed you a little bit at a time till we get to
Okay.
the grand finale. And we'll have a budget to approve.
Yeah,
Well,
great, I like that, better than just all of a sudden we get it and you got to make a decision.
yeah.
We got time to look at it all. All right, great. Anything else on this before I move on? On to accounts payable disbursements?
Can we go through them page by page rather than flip through them?
Yeah.
I see you flipping and I just.
No, oh, yeah, well, that's, yeah, I already know,
Starting with
I know,
page One.
I know what the one is. It's obviously the accounts payable for employer contributions, CalPERS, all that kind of stuff. I sort of glance over that one because that's set. But I do have a question on the first page one. I noticed the Bank of Mellon. That's our bond, is that correct? That's an awfully low payment, $1,300.
No, the 1,300, every year we have to pay an account kind of
Okay.
monitoring.
All right.
fee.
I
They're,
was
they're
gonna
the
say,
ones,
wow, we got away with a low interest rate.
because they take our payments and then they apply them to
Okay.
where they're supposed to go. And so, yeah,
Membership fee or something, whatever you want to call it for the bank.
account
Okay.
management, yeah.
And of course, CalPERS is on here, 30,000. That's to be expected. Aqua. I always choke when I get down to the groundwater authority one.
I'm sorry, you're on page,
I'm on page 1, which starts out with the, what's that? I'm on page,
you're on page,
Oh,
it
I'm on
says
pa- I'm on
page one, but
It
it
says,
says, okay, yeah, that's page two.
on page 2, yes.
Well, that.
Well, no, I
that's
have it as page, it says page 1 on the bottom.
Yeah, I understand, yeah.
I know.
Okay.
So that's where I'm just glancing down there.
page formerly known as page 2.
2, yes, yeah. There's one I saw in here I thought was a,
The Aqua JPI, that's really the insurance.
right, yeah.
Okay.
Looks like groundwater. Looks like Jim and Doug have been doing a lot of work, huh? But again, are there certain things paid within these legal bills that are going out towards,
Some go to capital if they're worked on documents for a capital project or, I'm, all of Murphy and Everett's goes to the legal adjudication line item.
okay,
Jim's goes all over.
and he breaks it
depending on
out
the
for you
work.
for
Yes.
whatever, yeah, okay. I didn't see anything else on this sheet. Do I have any questions on? And then
How's our Edison bill looking with all the damage? The Edison bill, due to the
Yeah.
solar damage, are we
It's definitely higher. Yeah.
definitely higher?
Yeah.
Okay, have we done any, not that we need to, I mean, 10% higher, $10,000 higher, is there any way to really tell?
I'd have to go pull invoices.
I mean, I'm looking at that number somewhere between 5 and 10 as an average. Does that sound about right? Higher?
It depends on the time of the year.
Yeah, you're right.
During the winter, they're typically lower, so seeing a $57,000 bill is a little
Yeah, exactly.
high for this time of year.
What's the status on repair and replacement?
We have the direction that we're gonna go. We're just waiting to get everything that we need to from the
Yeah.
contractor.
Were panels damaged? We're talking about the Southern California Edison bill being
Panels
higher because we
were
have a
not
certain,
damaged, just the wire
Oh,
was.
just the wiring was. Okay, so the panels are okay. It's just getting that wire, which isn't cheap anyway, because it's all copper stuff.
Oh.
Yeah.
On a semi-related issue,
Yeah.
we didn't talk about the Mayhead failure.
Brady,
or
Brady.
Brady, I'm
Brady.
sorry, Brady.
I-
I didn't, we didn't, when we were talking about the budget, it didn't see any costs, or there was no discussion about costs.
If
impacting-
you want to go back to that a little bit, I did make a couple notes here, which might help, because I had Springer versus Brady. And I understood from yesterday that that we're going to delay Springer because Brady looks like it's,
That costs incurred to date is just under 10,000.
okay,
It's reflected in that almost $7 million CIP.
okay.
But
Oh,
we,
okay.
we have ordered replacement pipe and that's here, so we'll be paying that bill soon and that's, I can't remember how much that was,
$470,000.
$470,000.
1,000, yeah.
Do we have any idea what the actual cost of fixing it is going to be?
For the whole line, we don't have that, for replacement, we don't have that number yet. We're working on it.
But we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars.
We're talking
Millions.
millions of dollars. The
Millions.
pipeline alone is, top pipeline alone is gonna be $2 million.
Yeah, so explain like sort of what you discussed
Okay.
A pulling pipe.
anecdotally with a contractor. So we had an anecdotal discussion, our staff did with a contractor. Would you please explain like what the idea was that's being explored and how much it
So we're
cost?
looking at two different avenues. One is to replace the pipeline with bell and spigot, typical PVC pipe, possibly on the other side of the road. And what that would cost versus slip lining the pipe into the existing 30-inch. That would be a 1,000-foot section, a hole every 1,000 feet, where we basically use the fusible PVC and run it through the existing pipe as a conduit. And that's obviously more efficient just to slide it in and go, but it is more expensive pipe. So we're kind of weighing the efficiency and the costs and what it all works out to in the end. But either way, it's going to be probably
Yeah.
$3 million or so.
Okay.
And I like that idea because what you're saying is you're not having to dig it, you're not going to dig it all up. You're not going to have to get all the permits. You're not going to have to watch for every ground squirrel and tortoise.
We're not going to have to buy property to store it.
That's right. You have to buy property to store it. So my question was this, is have you made a decision yet whether we're definitely delaying Springer for X amount of time until we complete this Brady?
Brady definitely takes priority over Springer at this point in time.
But
It's a
are
more
you
important
taking
pipeline.
priority assuming, well, I guess I'm at, where's the X-ray eye guy? Yeah, because if you knew a condition of the whole Brady line, you could answer my question. Yes,
Well,
yeah.
Let me give you some indication. So everyone has a theory about why it failed, but today when we were trying to weld on the flanges for the repair, it was severely out of round, which brings up the possibility that it was overcompacted and that could have cracked the concrete on the outside, which caused the corrosion.
That'd been years ago, though.
Well, 30 years ago,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know what you were doing
The
30
other
years ago, but you didn't get
It's severe out around, yeah.
Yeah, so the other relevant piece is like how far what do we have to take out? What was the length of section of pipe we had to take out to find good steel?
about almost 60 feet.
So like we had the break was in about a 2-foot section, and then we kept going back and trying to find good steel we could weld back, and they had to keep digging and pulling back till we took out a 50-foot section of pipe just to find a good piece of steel. Now, if that small piece of pipe has that level of corrosion and we had to go back that far, it doesn't give us a high degree of confidence that the rest of the pipe is in very good condition, because this is very similar to what happened along Inyokern Road, is that correct?
100%.
So this is kind of a repeat of what happened on the Inyokern Road.
Right.
And we're, so we're, to answer the basic question, I believe the answer is yes. We are delaying Springer indefinitely until we can get a good, solid connection all the way from
Okay.
the new pipeline, all the way to the
Bowman tanks.
Bowman
Bowman
tanks.
tanks,
Make sure I
yes.
say that correctly. And that way we have one good avenue to feed the city when we need
Yeah,
to,
so-
if the other ones were to fail.
George is saying the Brady line takes precedent over Springer
Okay.
just as far as what we need to operate correctly.
Right.
Now, Ty and I were looking at the numbers financially, we may be able to, if depending on what Brady comes in, we may be able to get all the pipe for both
Yeah.
with the
Okay.
bond. We'll see.
Oh, good, good. I'm glad. What is the Springer line? What kind of pipe is that? Is that
Which, the one that's there
the
now.
one you want to replace, the Springer line that you plan to replace? And I take
It's,
your,
AC, PVC,
Okay.
and I don't think there's any CMLC.
No, no.
how long's it basically, most of the line been in there? 20, 30 years? At least 20 years.
It's just undersized.
It's just undersized as well.
Yeah, that-
16.
Is that the biggest problem with it now?
100%, yeah.
Mhm.
What
Okay.
happens is when we try to turn on all the wells in the southwest and push water across the valley, it
And get it-
overpressurizes the west.
Overpressurizes the west. So it takes longer to, because is that line used to fill up the tanks up
It's used to fill the Springer tank.
and how do you get to the Kendall pipeline?
Well, that's a different zone, but
It's,
Yeah.
but it's not connected to the Springer line.
Hmm.
Okay. And that was replaced anyway, if I'm not mistaken, a few years ago. 6, 8 years ago?
Which one?
The one
Kendall?
down Kendall.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember the water coming down.
And since we're kind of off the track anyway here.
You started it.
I know, have we turned on the water yet to the northwest pipeline?
No.
No.
It's connected to the Brady pipeline, and there's no point in turning it on because,
we still have to do the exploration of it as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
So tomorrow, we're gonna start
We're gonna install the saddle tomorrow.
put the saddle on the northwest transmission pipeline to get the bag out. And then, yeah, but we really can't put that pipeline that we just put into full service up until the point that we get the Brady line back in service and,
Oh.
yeah.
Yeah, they sort of, they
Oh, I
connect.
didn't
Yeah.
They
realize
connect,
that.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, that was, what was it, David, that was saying, so maybe we need more valves?
Hit more valves,
Yes.
more valves, more valves. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah.
that, Jason, does that make sense operationally?
More valves always make sense operationally, just to isolate things. And like for the,
That's kinda what I
when
was
the break that we just had, because we had trouble getting to the one, we actually ended up isolating a 2-mile section of pipe. That's
Oh, okay.
quite a bit of pipe to
Well,
isolate.
I can just see the
Yeah.
next GA meeting with
I know.
Chuck being yelled at because we haven't gotten not the Dune 3, but the other.
Rademacher.
Oh, the
consolidation.
Redbacher, which is waiting on which is
Rademacher,
waiting on,
oh.
yeah, we already,
Why don't
we
get
went over
back-
that yesterday.
Let's get back to
Let's
the
get back, yeah.
finance.
I'll just tell you, they're gonna yell at us, and we've already told them that we're gonna do what we have to do to keep our system sound, and it's unfortunate. but
Well,
it is
We
what
have
it
to
is.
do what we have to do.
I don't know about you, Stan.
We'll let Chuck, I'm glad Chuck's got that job.
I don't know about you, but I'm on the last page of the accounts payable here. I don't know where you are, but that's where I am.
I'm sorry.
Okay. And I didn't see anything. I
Did
just,
there was nothing on page 2, right?
I didn't see anything, no.
Okay. On page, the next page isn't numbered.
Right,
I see nothing on it.
yeah. Then the next page is the prepaid accounts payable, right? Which is basically CalPERS and
Oh.
payroll
okay.
taxes.
Mine says accounts payable, not prepaid.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay,
It goes payroll function, accounts payable.
all right. Accounts payable, last
Okay.
page. I know I ask this question all the time, Ty. Kern County Auditor Controller, $10,000. That's going into our account, right?
Right, that's putting money into our future source of supply.
That's it.
Fund.
Okay. And Krieger and Stewart. Nothing caught my eye here except the name of a company that sort of, I thought it was weird, Royal Industrial Solutions. At first I thought maybe they're from England.
Where, where in here is the debt service?
I don't think he paid one.
I mean, we really have, we've got a loan and we've got a bank note, right? I mean, COP.
Right, those don't run through accounts payable. Those are transfers from the bank.
Not checks.
They're not checks.
Okay, all right.
Oh, okay, so they're not on here because
No.
they're
They're-
transfer.
Is that the 829.83 under debt service principal on page 1?
Right.
Yeah, so Stan, that's only reflected up in this very initial summary as the 820.
The revenue
It's
versus
the
expense.
fourth number from the bottom.
The debt service principal, yeah. And our debt is being paid to the Bank of Mellon for the bond, right?
For the bond, that's Bank of Mellon.
That's what I thought.
Stan?
For the COP as well,
Page-
the solar loan is Alta
Oh,
One.
okay.
Okay, all right.
And
I don't see a problem.
So Alta One holds that, the solar loan, and they direct withdraw from it, from our account. We see it, we authorize it every month.
We have an account with them that we store money in and they just pull it out.
That's our banking institution now,
Okay.
Alta One.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I think we're done with accounts receivable.
I think so. I think that I think we recommended the board to pay the bills.
Recommending that the board.
Pay the bills?
accounts
Okay.
payable. Because it seems like the right thing to do.
Yeah, well, we do owe those people that money. All right. We'll move on to future agenda items. Anything we want to add?
There is. This morning, for the second time, I was approached by the Navy. The first time they approached me, they had a number of suggestions about various government programs where we could get funding for groundwater sustainability, pipeline projects, resiliency within our system. And this morning, they noted that there is potentially, they're one of 3 bases who have been selected for a special program that might allow them to help us pay for projects such as water capture coming off of runoff from the mountains, or where known LADWP releases can be done. So we're doing some studies on that. But I think what you're going to see is I need some help. I need a professional person who has the time, and I know Ty could do this, but like we need someone to sort of dig into these various government programs that the Navy is suggesting, and also to sort of begin whatever the Navy's process is. So they have this program where they want to help their base's resiliency, and it allows them to spend money off base. And I believe the Navy believes that if they can capture more water, that they might be willing, within the basin, it helps them out. And so now I need to have a person or an entity that's good at this type of stuff. And I'm not finding that I have the time. I don't know that Ty has the time. He seems pretty busy. Renee's over there. She's always raising her hand like, oh, I got more time, but I'm
Yeah,
just kidding.
I think Renee could handle it, but otherwise, we could look at, there are professional grant writers, because I don't know that we have enough for full-time, do we? Do you think it would be full-time?
I almost look at the model the GA uses. They have Capital Corps. I think
Right.
Capital Corps has done a good job for them. I've asked Capital Corps, and they've sent me some lengthy
No, they're-
lawyerly response that they could never help
I
us
wouldn't-
because we're at opposition to them. I mean,
Yeah.
for what it's worth, I don't think they're
They're not a grant writer.
but they're good at getting money.
Yeah.
That's what they're good at, when they're, and they
But I'm not so
do write those
sure
GA grants. So
Tended to
what I'm
finding
asking.
projects to use the money.
Right, well, you can disagree with the project, but say that maybe they're doing a pretty good job of getting money for a project you disagree with,
oh, yeah.
which is a fair assessment, but
Absolutely.
they don't want to work with us, so like, I think Ty is sort of suggesting what I'm thinking, which is we may need some professional help in this area for grant writing and other stuff. I don't know what that costs, but I think we should look into it and maybe bring that to the board as a future agenda item, because, I think the Navy's kind of telling us, like, we like what you're doing, we're here to help and we're here to point out government but they can't do it for us. We need to do it.
Right.
Okay.
And that means I'm not fine.
I think Tom might even have an answer over there. It looks like
Right.
he's,
So when we were looking for money initially, when the Northwest Transmission Line failed, we did reach out to California Municipal Finance, which is also partnered with Weiss Law, who did our bond financing.
right.
And they had contacts for USDA and whatnot, but this may be something in their wheelhouse. I can reach out to them. We've
Can't hurt
used
to
them
ask.
before. They did a fine job. They
Right.
may have those connections. They're up in Sacramento as well, I think.
There's a couple of things that come to mind too, we can always use Aqua as our source. We can contact them, see if they know someone. Then also it's CERTA, the other group, is that it? Yeah. Special districts, yeah.
Mhm.
I always see ads and stuff and I see they offer stuff as well. It's Special District, California Special District Association. And they might have a recommendation as well, although I think maybe it's, but I don't know if that's, they offer it to us, but Aqua may have, that's the place I would ask.
Yeah.
And I'd go there for
Well,
sure.
it seems to me there's actually two parts to that, because one is trying to identify the project, the other one is writing up the grant to do the project. And it seems to me that maybe Krieger and Stewart would, since they've been working with us all this time, they might be the one to suggest the project definition, and then maybe go to this other special projects or whatever. You know, I keep getting emails from them all the time,
Right, yeah.
constantly.
To me, the first step is, number one is find out what they're telling you. In other words, what type of things are available. Next step would be, in those categories, what are you allowed to do? Because the Navy is very restrictive. There'd be maybe certain items that you can do and that you can't do. And then obviously, once that happens, then it's up to our engineering here, the board, what projects do we see as priorities and which ones do we think we can get money for before we start moving into writing for grants. But first we have to know what money is available and what's it available for. And I'm not sure where you get that information.
No. But that's the
let me-
early.
Can John help
so-
us?
So let me
That's
sort of
not
tie this.
actually
Yeah,
So let me tie this back to
the
what we.
start. You're right. You got to do that before we do
Yeah.
anything.
yeah.
And so what we have going now, which we talked about yesterday, is we're going to de-scope some of the things that Tim Parker and Parker Groundwater were going to do to identify places where we could percolate or inject water that either runs off or that we know in places where LADWP. We could take that information and then scope a project out of that and then advocate with the Navy to fund and build it, and this would be sort of, I think my vision of it is, I think when we were asked by Dawn to, before my time, to sort of like, hey, let's see if we can figure out how to capture some, because we knew there was a lot of rain and a lot of dumping coming from LADWP. We weren't necessarily fully prepared. So what we want to do is sort of put that infrastructure in place, because, it's a dry year, but that doesn't mean next year isn't going to be really wet or the year after that. So now's our time to prepare for sort of that type of infrastructure that we can build. And specifically what the Navy was talking about is it's infrastructure that doesn't use a lot of concrete and cement. It's
Right.
more,
Moving dirt.
more moving dirt and gravel and natural processes, so, but they've gotten themselves signed up as one of the 3 bases. And I think we really owe it to them to
Oh,
take a good run at this.
Did John Kersey bring this to you?
it's good
Yes, we
money.
did.
John Kersey, I hate to read anything into it, but it sounds like they're interested in helping us solve the issue of the small amount of water we may additionally need.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I just think they're interested
I
in,
think the Navy would prefer us to find alternatives to the pipeline.
and I'm not going to speculate on where the Navy is. The Navy hasn't
Yeah.
come out with a position. Like I'm grateful that they have asked for to be included in this program, and
Oh,
they're willing to work with us,
absolutely.
and we should leave it at that.
We should
Just-
try to take advantage of it.
Yes, we should.
So you want to add that as an agenda item that we just,
I do. I think by the next board meeting, I'd like to say that, we've
Just
sort
updates.
of reached out to the Navy. We're trying to figure out what this is, and do we need professional help to help navigate this process with the Navy as the first step? And then also somebody to look at all these other grants and how they might be utilized in the future.
okay. Anything else for future? In the future, we want to leave this, keep this meeting to an hour. I'd like to say that for sure. So half an hour, I don't know. Well, because we've added, don't forget, we've combined some things in here that we decided it, yeah. So with that, I thank everybody, and with nothing else said, ready to adjourn? I'll adjourn at 4:14. Thank you.